Hello, everybody. It's Heather with the Leadership with Heart podcast. And today I am super excited to be speaking with Stephanie Englund. She and I met, actually, it was through LinkedIn. I was doing a promotion for my 5-year anniversary, and she was the one selected to get books and gifts and time with me. And so we got to know each other. And I thought, oh, I have got to have you on my podcast. And so voila, welcome, Stephanie.
Here I am. Thank you.
So tell everybody right now, where are you in your leadership journey anyway?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, for me, what I identified so much with you and like your content was because I've always identified myself as a heart leader. And I think that has been a journey for me to really own that. I think that hasn't always been embraced in the corporate world as being a heart leader. And I think in the last like probably 2 or 3 years, I've really like leaned in and been like, this is okay, because it kind of felt not okay that I wasn't like leading with, the carrot and the stick and all those kind of like those philosophies where I was like, hey, I really care about these people and like this is important to me. And so I think I've evolved into that in the last couple of years and just owned it, which has been very liberating, frankly.
That's awesome. I love it. And you're right now, what's your position you're at now?
Yeah, so I'm a director in talent acquisition at Best Buy. And so I lead a team of about 26 people. And I have leaders and then recruiters as well. And we support the Best Buy enterprise. And so my team specifically supports some of our field leadership roles, supply chain, a number of our corporate functions. I also lead our early careers university kind of recruiting as well. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
that's a lot. That's a lot of work.
It is.
I know, because the company is. Oh gosh. So okay, I'm curious to know, like, what would your team, those 26 people, 26, you said, right?
Yeah.
What would they say about you and your leadership style? How would they describe you? What would be the words they'd use for you?
I think they would say I'm very enthusiastic. I am one of the favorite terms that has been used to describe me that I will take to my grave is a velvet hammer. And that is like the highest compliment I've ever gotten, is that someone that like I can be really firm but also be really kind about it. And I think also like be soft and be hard at the same time. And so I think that's a lot of my team would tell you that. I'm very direct, again, in the nicest way possible.
That's very cool. Well, I think that, that you're right. It is a compliment. Not everybody can be called that velvet hammer. It's just not, that's good. It's a stamp. It's a stamp literally for you, right?
Yes, it is for sure.
So as we think about this evolving world, oh man, hybrid work and remote work and just all the trends that we're seeing at work and recruitment, like what are some of the challenges you're discovering? And then also like, what have been your biggest aha moments or wake up calls as it relates to just what we've gone through in the last few years, being in the real pivotal role you are to make sure you bring in the right talent in? What have been some ahas for you?
I think it's really interesting because I think, Best Buy, before Best Buy's been through this amazing, evolution as you think about how we do business and how we've approached this whole like world that we're in. But it also, like, prior to this, Best Buy was very much like, you come to the office 5 days a week and like this is where you do your work and like this is how, even though the world had kind of started like getting into a little more remote, like we had kind of started dabbling there, but we were standing pretty firm on the like be in the office. And I think the last couple of years have really shown us, including me, because I was also one of those people like in a recruiting perspective, and because I'm a people person, I get so much energy from being with people. And I was like, yeah, we do need to be in the office. We do need to be around each other. And there's still a part of me that thinks there's a lot of value in that. So that's why I really love the hybrid model, because like if you are here, I can be here with my people a couple days a week, but then I can also work at home in my office and get a lot done. And also over half my team now is actually remote and don't even live in Minnesota. So now I have the opportunity to learn how to lead remotely as well, which is kind of amazing. And again, I was very skeptical at the start of all this with the remote work, but I've really grown to embrace it. And I think a lot of our leaders are, as they start thinking about hiring differently, thinking about how we work and what does success look like. And it's not being in your seat from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. It's how do we work and work in this evolving world. And that's what candidates want too. So when you think about recruiting, we've really had to like think about how we post our roles, think about how we talk about roles, how we talk about hybrid, because everyone has a little different definition of what hybrid means, and all those kind of things that we've evolved, and we're still on the journey. But I do think that like candidates are, and when you look at our corporate headquarters here, it's pretty mammoth and it's pretty impressive. And that was always something that we would sell was come on campus. You have to see our campus because you're going to just fall in love with it, which I did when I joined the company. But now we have to think differently about how do we sell Best Buy to candidates and how do we sell the culture too? And what is the culture? So I think that evolution is continuing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so then like your brand proposition, because, from your perspective, it's like there's a huge marketing effort. Do you work with it? Like, does this role traditionally in organizations work with marketing, at least like the employee marketing? Is there anything that you do to kind of do that to promote place and stuff?
We actually have a team within talent acquisition that is employee marketing, employment brand. And so really, and that's a newer team for us in the last like 2 years, which has just been amazing to have someone on the team who just has that mindset. And he comes from a background in that he leads us and helps us think differently about our job postings and thinking differently about how do we talk about Best Buy and how do we talk about the opportunities within. Like one of the coolest things he did in the last couple of years was he put this amazing video together, and it's on LinkedIn, for our supply chain business, and like why you should come work in a distribution center. And it's a super cool video, and like working and thinking differently about marketing to candidates was just been so great. He's been an amazing value to the team.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that is good. And like, boy, many organizations need that, because I think that's a big part of it. People are always like baffled. Now, I don't know if you feel like, have you been feeling the pinch too with the evolution? Just the pinch of like, we're finding it hard to get good people, particularly those in the front line, different salary levels, all those kinds of things.
Yeah. It's changed. Like the economy has changed just a little bit in the last like probably 6 months or so. It's because we just don't have as many jobs open. And also like with all the tech reductions in California has really kind of changed the like tech market, which has been always traditionally the hardest employees for us to find. The market's changed a little bit. So it's an interesting, there's still a high demand for candidates, but like as the economy kind of shifts a little bit, it's just a little different feel and vibe, but like it's still hard to find people. So it's just an interesting contradiction.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think it's a rarity. I think this is a common thing that's happening. You keep hearing the complaints about, although with all the dang layoffs in the tech sector, which you kind of have that angle of tech at Best Buy, you could consider really more, is it electronics, consumer service? What is it?
We are consumer electronics, but we have a huge, like when you think about our app, our website, a huge percentage of our business comes from our website and e-commerce. So we're a huge tech company with kind of the heading of consumer electronics. And so we do have a lot of tech within our organization.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and how that would be impacted on both sides, for both sectors, on the consumer electronic side and on the e-commerce side. I was just saying something about Amazon and some moves that they're making here. I need to look at the article more fully to speak articulately about it, but it's related to their workforce reductions, I think is what I saw. So, just like trying to make it where you don't have to do all those things. And at the same time, sometimes it's required to be done. And that's a hard place to be. I know, like when I talk about, I remember I got on this journey because I had gone through a layoff, and it was a company that was merging multiple companies together, and they were trying to do some moves, and some of the moves weren't like inclusive of other voices. So they weren't really talking as much to employees and to customers to ask them if the changes were what they wanted. So the merger, well, you're already going to have layoffs. It's just part of the process because they have to do all the consolidation and alignments and all that stuff. I don't think it had to be as painful as it was. It was a lot of people that were gone in the end. And so there's always a way to like, how do we reorg? How do we restructure? How do we, like, we might have to do the reductions. Like, how do we do these things in a way that's, again, heart focused, right? How do we do it? Like, human, exactly. So it's a big part of it.
It's interesting. I was reading an article too that like, because we're a Minnesota-based company and with all the impacts in the US, specifically kind of like the Silicon Valley kind of area with tech, we have been so conservative, and I always joke about Best Buy being super scrappy. Like, we're a scrappy retail organization. Like, we didn't hire as much as some of those other organizations did across the board, but specifically in tech. So we don't have that level of like over hiring, I think, a little bit, that some of those organizations did, to be really smart about it. But that's in general Minnesota. It must be a Minnesotan thing. So like in general here, like companies here just didn't hire as much as some of those other companies. So you're not seeing that level of impacts here, which is interesting.
Well, that's very good. That's very good.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm curious to know, where like for what you do now and what you've been doing for a while now, and just the idea of leadership, where does it derive from? Where does your drive to lead come from? Why is it that you want to be that velvet hammer? Why is it that you want that to be your stamp? Where does it come from?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, I attribute it to, like, as a kid, I'm the oldest child. I'm a little bit bossy. But I also really like loved that support and influence for people. So like, I was the president of our 4-H club when I was growing up. I was a camp counselor. I was an RA in college. So like, all those things kind of have led me here. And I think for me, it's not about the title, it's about the work. And I always tell, when I was doing recruiting every day, I always tell candidates, like, go for the work, don't go for the title. Don't go for the money, don't go for the title, go for the work. And I think for me, it's about the work. Like, I really, truly love, like, this is like dream job for me to like be able to support and lift a team and like help. Now I'm helping leaders be leaders, which is just like amazing to me, that I get to support a leadership team that are just phenomenal. And I think this is, for me, that just fills me up. Like, and I don't even think about necessarily what's next. I'm just thinking about what's today, which sometimes, you get a little hard, like, what's your 5-year plan? I don't know. Like, I love the work I'm doing, and I get to do it every day and get to work with amazing people. So that's the big goal for me.
Oh, I love that. Well, and I think when you do that, you already become more magnetic. People want to be around you because you just love what you do. Your end game isn't to like manipulate them or like get them to do all these different things. It's your end game is just, how are you serving these people?
Yeah, exactly.
How they feel when they're done with it.
Exactly.
Okay, have you ever, can you think of a specific time when you were not that kind of leader? Like that you were not the kind of person that just really, this defining of service, serving others, heart-based, just even if it was either time in your leadership or like a specific scenario where you just didn't feel like you showed up with much heart?
Yeah, I think the funny thing about this situation, I've been thinking about this question, I think it was, my intention was to be with heart, but I think because I was trying to protect a team because they were like super busy, and I was like, okay, I'm going to protect you and I'm going to keep you away from all this other craziness because I want you to be able to focus and I don't want you to have to worry about these things. But what happened with that was I created this like bubble, and there wasn't understanding from this other side of the business. There wasn't any kind of relationship. There wasn't any connection. And so I kind of built this island for them unintentionally. But I think what happened was like, it just like, then I ended up having to like do more work and also like help support that leader in a different way that just wasn't fair to her either. Like, it wasn't, because like my intention to like support her just kind of went sideways. So that's the big one.
And how do you, by the way, I had that same inclination. I tend to be a mama bear. I want to protect. I want to not have people like touch my people. Like, don't you be like, don't you be messing up my, they're doing their work. They're doing what they're supposed to do. So I have that same inclination. But what do you do to kind of assure that doesn't continue to show its face? That mama bear approach doesn't continue to show its face for you?
This has been a journey for me, especially the last couple of years. And I think my leader calls it pragmatic empathy. And I think it's just this like, how do I take a step back and like just like really try to see it from a different perspective versus like react on protect? Because I think like the react to protect and like, I'm going to fix this also is frankly super draining. Like, it takes everything out of me. And I think it's not good for my team. It's not good for me. And so how do I really sit back and listen and be empathetic in that moment, be like, yeah, this is frustrating and this is hard. How can I help you? Versus, I'm gonna fix this. Don't you worry. I'm gonna take care of this and I'm gonna fix this for you. And so I think that's the big lesson that was in that, is to like take a little bit of a step back, even take a little time to like let it soak in. But I think the big thing is just listening and being in the moment and like really that's what that person wants, is like to be heard versus me fix it.
Oh, wow. You just like walked right into the next book I'm writing. On the art of active listening. You really have it.
Look at
You
that.
just walked right in. I wasn't trying to do that, but wow, you just like set the table. Anyway, it's interesting that you say that, because I write this, write and speak about it, and I struggle with it all the time. I mean, there's just 105,000 things going on at one time.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Somebody's texting us, somebody's in our email,
Yes.
somebody knocks on the door, it's just so many things. And so how do we keep ourselves fully present, there to serve, but not be so invested or where we're overly invested, and where we feel like action is required in every moment. And I tell people, like, we need to do a better job of asking permission to act, and asking for the type of action they want. Because often we either do too much or not a little, not enough, whatever it is, but we haven't talked to the other people to find out what they expect from us. They might, like you said, only want you just to sit in here, and that is it. Nothing else. Don't do anything else, because we can mess it up, right?
Yes. And I'm very, like, I think the thing too is like, vulnerability has also been a journey for me too, because I'm such a fixer. Like, the vulnerability journey, be like, I don't know this answer. I don't know how to fix this. Like, let's talk about this, and how do we come up with something together too, is also a huge step for me. And I think just to be able to like seek to understand and like trust too. Like I said at the very start of this, I have an amazing leadership team. They're all incredibly talented and smart in their each unique way. And I have to be able to say, it's okay. Like, you can do this. Like, I'm behind here. Like, I'm happy to help you. Put me in, coach, when you need me. But like, until then, like, it's for you to do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I don't know if you know, because you're so busy that you're probably not even watching, but there's a webinar on March 28th that I'm doing with Frank, the Stephen M.R. Covey.
Oh, no. Yeah.
And so he and I are doing it, and we're going to do it basically on the kind of the connection between trust and active listening, seeking and the whole model. He really believes in the model. His father started down the road of seek and understand. And so I've kind of picked it up and really have branched out on the 5-step framework. So he's going to be on that. And I think you'll love that, because what you just said made me think of what we're going to talk about so much. But it's of how do you get to a place of trust so that you can have more high performing teams. And it's a big one. So it's March 28th. If it's not on if you haven't seen it on the email, or you haven't seen it on social, it's somewhere. It's going to be posted somewhere.
I will find it. It sounds awesome.
And for those who are listening, obviously join that too. There's so many things. You just got to make sure you follow on LinkedIn or whatever, because you'll just see all the different like ways you can engage with other people, different ways and different types of content and learnings in different methods and mediums. And so that's what I love about it. Okay, well, that's helpful. I love the fact that you started off, you premised it with, it wasn't the best, but it started off with heart. Like it was actually, and I always say that, I say often that, like, people who have an affinity to action, like they have a desire to act, and they run real fast right after they receive a feedback or a complaint or something. And I say, unless it's like a life or death thing, you actually want to pause. This is that decoding part of the process. Pause and reflect on what it is you're hearing, and also find out what it is they want. And so that way, when you do act, it does feel heart-based versus like, well, dang it, they just messed me up worse than I was when I got to them. Don't leave people worse off. Leave them better off.
No. Because that is contrary to heart leadership and human leadership. Like, I want it to be better. And,
exactly.
It's like, it is hard for me to even not be a heart leader. So like, and I'm really bad at it when I'm asked to not be a heart leader. So how do you like really lean into like being authentic to yourself? And like, how do you support people that aren't necessarily heart leaders too in those human moments? And I think that's been a journey for me too, with a team. Like, they're not all the same as me. And so how do I help support them in their journey to be human? It's okay if you're not a heart leader. I don't know. You don't have to be me, but like, how do you be a human too?
Yeah, exactly. I think, and that's always a balance too, isn't it? Because it's like, if we had everybody just like you and I, we would be in a world of hurt in the world. Like, you know what I mean? We couldn't do it. So we have to have like it takes all kinds.
Yes. And I love that, like, with my team, like, we're so different, and I kind of have learned to embrace it, which is like was hard at first, because I was like, oh, like, it's not all warm and fuzzy, like, it's okay. But I've really learned to enjoy like the banter and the conversation, the disagreement, and the transparency. I just think is really awesome, and I think there's so much value in there and the differences.
That's awesome. Love it, love it, love it. So much goodness in there. There's so much. And when we think of, that's just like goes back to diversity. It's the same thing. Like, that's what it is. It's like all of our backgrounds, all of our filters, all of our everything. Like, just take it in, just lean into it. That's the best way to do it.
Not everyone, and this was always like with hiring, a lot of times hiring leaders would be like, I like this person, like I think I want to hire them because they seem like someone I'd want to have a beer with. And I was like, are you sure? Are you sure that's the best person for this job?
Exactly. I love that you ask the question and make them think and come up with their own answer.
What about this person? They have some interesting background, and like it might be some difference to your team, those kind of things.
They might not want beer, but it'll be a lot of other good things. You never know.
Yes.
Oh gosh. So now we get to turn the tables and you get to ask me a question, whatever you want to ask me. So that, and I hopefully it'll help others, I'm sure, as I answer. So go at it. Now it's your turn. You ask me a question.
Awesome. So for heart leaders, what is your advice for leading non-heart leaders potentially? And like, how do you kind of transform and adjust and morph your style? I'm curious with your thoughts there.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I'd have to say that the journey is a long one. So buckle up and be prepared. Be prepared, because I've been there where I either have managing up. So like my boss wasn't a heart boss, or somebody on another team who was a colleague, but not on my team, who they weren't a heart focused. Here's what I would say often is that like some of us just have like much harder outer shells to break through. And so it takes a lot of patience to continue to be authentically you, to lean into what that person needs with all the good stuff, that is good, like the listening and the trust and building the trust. And so even though it takes longer to break through their core, when you do, it's easier for them to trust you, to see you as you are. And they also appreciate that you see them as they are, and that you appreciate and value them. And then they're more receptive to getting either, a little bit of feedback or being consulted, or either they might even come to you and seek you out because they see you as like the person who does this, who is this person. They recognize your brand, right? And they say, okay, I'm going to come to you for this. So I would just say, like, being the person who's really leads with heart, it's not an easy road to be on. And it takes patience, and you have to buckle up, and you got to be in it for the long haul, but know that it makes a difference. There's a gentleman I can think of right now. I worked at an organization, and he just did not trust that this thing I have, that's me, like this leader with heart thing, was a real thing. He's like, yeah, no. He didn't say it, but you could just tell, like his whole entire. And I think I worked with him for about 2.5 years before I did this thing where I was like, you know what? Because it was in customer experience, and I decided to invite him to come with me on a visit to a customer. And he used to always complain, like when I come back, oh, you always say yes to them and you give in too much to them and you do this and that. So we go into this client meeting, and he's the one who starts like over promising, and he's just like all connected. And I was like, after we left, I'm like, okay, well, I guess you handled that. Like, okay, well, so then now you see why I do what I do with the client. But he needed to, like, his heart had to be penetrated in order for him to see and trust that this was a better way to be and a better way to go. Did it completely convert him? Absolutely not. But I do think that then he could trust like the heart-led leader person who came in this way and say, okay, it is a real thing. And she or he was trying to meet this client, this employee where they're at. And I can see now the need. And so I think it's just important to be patient. Look for the inroads. What's the opening? What's the thing that speaks to them? What is their whole speaking style and communication style? Because it's not the same as ours, just not. Totally. They don't want to hear about your gut and how much you feel and the connection. They want to know other things. I mean, it's not everybody, but it's different.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Here's what I would say. At the work we do at Employee Fanatics, of course, I'm the founder of Employee Fanatics, and we help organizations really get to the bottom of what their people want and why, and then help them figure out what to do about it. And so if anybody's listening now feels like you are either in a position as a leader to make sure people at work feel heard, valued, and understood, whether it's on the customer side or the team member side, reach out to us, because we'd be happy to help to really create that culture of listening and engagement that leads to more of this heart-based work. It helps to penetrate the harder shell, gets more connections with employees and customers. It's really the crux and the love of the work we do at Employee Fanatics. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it.
So now I'm curious, for those who are listening now, they might be, I mean, because the market you're in is a tough market. Your role and your position is like, people could go, woe is me. I would never want to be in talent acquisition. It's such a hard time to do it. What might be a couple of pearls of wisdom you'd leave them with now to kind of put them on their way so that they feel kind of empowered to show up with greater heart-based leadership, and at the same time can balance that with being pragmatic, as you talked about, making sure that the people that they're in feel heard, but at the same time, they know that there's expectations. And how do you do the balance? What are the couple of pearls of wisdom you might leave people with on that?
I think the big thing is meeting people where they are and listening are super important. I also think for me, something that is like guiding principle for me is assuming positive intent. And I do it almost to a fault, but I think assume the positive and don't assume it's about anything about me. Like really like seek in and listen. And of course I'm open to feedback. So I'm not saying it's never about me, but I think like, how do you like seek and really listen and understand and like meet that person where they are? I think that's the big piece. And I think that goes for anything. I think that goes for like, even if you're job searching, if you have a leader, if you don't have people that report to you, all those kind of things, I think assume positive intent is like the guiding principle for everything.
That's a big one, to make sure that we're doing that. I coach people a lot on that, to just make sure that they, because what'll happen is you go into interactions with people and we do go, like, why'd they say that? Why didn't they say that? Why did they bring that up? And we don't understand that everybody's walking around with their own baggage, their own luggage, their own issues. And so I love the fact that, that you use that as the guiding force. And I think that's just a great advice for anybody listening right now, for sure.
Yeah. And it's not easy. It's not always easy, because sometimes I'm like, I want to dip below the line and I don't want to assume positive intent.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It
is hard to take the higher ground, isn't it? But it's worth it. It's worth it for all of us, the whole entire world. If we all led that way, with knowing that people are carrying their own baggage, that it's heavy for everyone, that positive intent, that they're doing the best that you can, then you don't put as much pressure on them and you for perfection. But just like, yes, we have to hold each other accountable to be better, but that not perfect. So I love that. I love it.
And imperfection, I think, is important too, that it's okay. And that's hard sometimes even for me to say out loud as a perfectionist, but like I'm like a recovering perfectionist. And so like, how do you like be okay with making mistakes and being okay like not knowing everything? And I think assuming positive intent too is a part of that.
So true. Love it. Well, so for those who are listening right now, if you got some great value from my conversation with Stephanie, please do share it far and wide. That's how we get more leaders to convert their minds and their behaviors to get better. So hopefully you do share this. And so I'm glad we finally got together, Stephanie. I think this is definitely meant to be. I'm so glad you're here, and just keep shining, keeping that velvet hammer. Okay. Keep doing it.
I will. Thank you.
We value it.
I appreciate you having me. It's been such a pleasure and so fun.
And thanks everybody for listening to the Leadership with Heart podcast. Be well.